The ruins were silent, broken walls standing like bones of a dead giant. The air was heavy with dust, and every step crunched against fallen stone. A human named Daniel moved carefully, his rifle ready. His mission was simple: scout the alien outpost. Report back, nothing more. But something strange happened. From behind the collapsed arch, a figure stumbled out. Her skin shimmered faintly under the moonlight. Not human, clearly alien. She was wounded, one arm holding her side. Blood dark and thick against her pale robe. Her eyes were wide, filled with both fear and something Daniel couldn't name. He raised his rifle instantly, heart pounding. His orders were clear: no survivors, no risks. He steadied his hand. Aiming right at her chest, the alien woman gasped. Lifting her trembling hand slowly, her voice cracked like broken glass as she whispered, "Don't shoot me, human. Let me live and I'll give you a family." Daniel froze, his finger tightened on the trigger, but the word struck him like lightning. A family. What did that mean? Was it a trick? The silence stretched. The ruins seemed to hold their breath. The alien's chest rose and fell quickly, as if every second was her last. Daniel's training screamed inside his head. Eliminate the threat, report success. Yet his heart twisted. Her voice was not angry, not hostile. It was desperate, raw, like someone who had already lost too much. "Why would you say that?" Daniel muttered, his voice low. Rifle still fixed on her. The woman lowered her head. Her silver hair slipped forward, dirty and tangled. "Because I have nothing left, my people are gone. My world is broken. If you kill me, I vanish with them, but if you spare me, I will give you what you humans value: a family." Daniel swallowed hard. His throat felt dry. He had heard many lies in battles. He had seen traps, desperate aliens trying to survive, yet something in her tone shook him. The rifle felt heavy in his hands. He stepped closer, his boots echoing on stone. The alien backed away slowly, her weak legs barely holding. She was cornered against the wall now, nowhere to run. Her eyes locked on his, glowing faintly in the dark. "You think I am enemy," she whispered, "but I am only..." Alone, Daniel's mind raced. His superiors would call him weak. They would tell him mercy was a mistake. But deep down, he remembered nights alone back on Earth, eating in silence, no one waiting for him, no one to call family. The word cut into him sharper than any blade. "What do you mean, family?" he asked, voice tighter than before. The woman's lips trembled. She whispered again, "Not blood, not war. Just belonging. I can give that, please, human. Let me live." The ruins creaked as a breeze pushed through broken walls. Dust swirled like ghosts between them. Daniel's finger hovered on the trigger. In his mind, he saw two futures in one. He fired. The mission would be clean, safe. He would walk away with cold duty fulfilled in the other. He lowered his weapon and stepped into something unknown, something dangerous. The alien woman swayed on her feet. She looked weak enough to collapse any second. Her knees bent as if she would fall, yet her eyes never left his face. Filled with desperate hope, Daniel cursed under his breath. His arm ached from holding the rifle so steady. His heart pounded like drums in his ears. Then, he made a choice. With a slow breath, Daniel lowered the barrel just a little. The alien gasped softly, relief flashing in her eyes. But he did not drop his guard. His voice was firm. "If this is a trick, I will end it fast, do you understand?" The woman nodded weakly, clutching her side tighter. "Yes, I understand, human," she whispered, "but it is not a trick, it is all I have left." For a long moment, they stared at each other. Two strangers from different worlds, bound by fear, desperation, and a strange promise behind them. In the shadows of the ruins, something moved, a faint sound like claws scraping stone. Daniel's head snapped up, his rifle rising again. His instincts sharpened. The alien woman's eyes widened in terror. "They followed me," she breathed. "Please, if you kill me now, they win. If you let me live, we might both survive." The suspense thickened. Daniel's choice was no longer about mercy alone, it was about survival, about whether the woman's plea was a burden or the only chance he had. And so the night in the ruins stretched darker. The rifle was still in his hands, but his heart was already caught in her words. The ruins were still, but Daniel's heart was not. His rifle remained steady, eyes scanning every shadow. The alien woman leaned against the wall, clutching her side, her breathing ragged. Her earlier words echoed in his mind. "Don't shoot me, human. Let me live, and I'll give you a family." Strange words, dangerous words. They dug deeper than he wanted to admit. "Start talking," Daniel said, his voice low but sharp. If I don't like what I hear, you won't live long, the alien woman nodded weakly. Her silver hair fell across her face. Her lips trembled, but she forced herself to speak. My name is Saris, she whispered. I was part of a colony. We built lives here, homes, farms, children's laughter. It was peaceful until the hunters came. Daniel frowned. Hunters? Saris shivered, her whole body shaking as if the memory itself was cutting her apart. Mercenaries, they killed, burned, tore everything. My people tried to fight, but we had no weapons strong enough. We were slaughtered like prey. I ran, I hid. I lost everyone. Her words hung in the broken air like smoke. Daniel's grip on his weapon tightened. He had heard stories of mercenary packs that wiped out weak colonies for resources. But seeing the living evidence, the trembling figure before him was different. So why should I trust you? He asked, his tone cold. Saris lifted her head slowly. Her glowing eyes met his. Because I know something you don't, she said, voice gaining strength. The hunters. They're not finished. They want more. They want humans too. Daniel blinked. What are you talking about? Her chest rose and fell, desperate. I heard them when I was hiding. They spoke of humans, how your kind is spreading too quickly, how contracts have already been made to erase you. His blood ran cold. His mission had never mentioned this, if what she said was true. This wasn't just about one dying alien woman. This was about humanity itself. You expect me to believe that? Daniel asked, though his voice lacked the certainty it had before. Saris pressed her hand harder against her wound. You don't have to believe me now, but you will see soon. The hunters are moving closer, their trail. I've been running from it for days. I can lead you away. I can help you survive. Daniel studied her carefully. He wanted to dismiss her words as lies, tricks from a desperate alien, but her trembling was real, her wound deep, her eyes full of raw fear. If she was acting, it was the best performance he had ever seen. You said something before, he muttered, lowering the rifle a little. You said you'd give me a family. What does that mean? Saris closed her eyes, a soft sigh escaping her lips. Family is not just blood, human. It is safety, trust, belonging. I have none of it left, but if you let me live, I will stand with you, fight with you, stay with you. I will give you what I begged for my whole life. Someone to belong to. Her voice cracked at the last words. Daniel felt a heavy ache in his chest. He had lived alone for years, always moving from one mission to another, returning to empty rooms, eating meals in silence, no one waiting, no one calling his name. The silence stretched. His rifle dipped slightly lower. You're asking me to risk everything, Daniel said slowly. If I help you, I'll be hunted too. Saris's voice was soft, but firm. You already are human, you just don't see it yet. His jaw tightened. The weight of his decision pressed hard against him. He could kill her now, end the risk, walk away with clean hands, but the truth was, his hands would never feel clean again, finally. Daniel cursed under his breath and reached into his pack. He pulled out a small med stick and tossed it toward her feet. Use it before you bleed out, he muttered. But if you try anything, I'll end this fast. Saris's eyes widened. Trembling hands picking up the device, she pressed it against her wound. Gasping as the healing chemicals burned through her skin, her shoulders slumped in relief. She looked at him, and for the first time, there was hope in her gaze. You won't regret this, she whispered. Daniel looked away, scanning the ruins again. We'll see, he said coldly, but deep inside, he already knew he had crossed the line. Somewhere in the darkness, a low howl echoed across the ruins. The sound of claws scraping stone followed, closer this time. Daniel's grip tightened on his rifle again. Saris's eyes filled with fear. They're here, she breathed. The hunters found us. Daniel steadied his weapon. Every nerve on fire, he had made his choice. And now he would have to live or die with it. The bargain had been struck, and the night was about to test it. The night pressed heavy over the ruins. The howl faded, but Daniel's heart still pounded. He knew the hunters were close, too close. Saris leaned against the broken wall, her wound patched with the med stick, her body trembling with weakness. We can't stay here, Daniel muttered, scanning the shadows with his rifle. They'll track us by scent, by heat, maybe even by fear. Saris nodded slowly. There is a place, an old shelter. I hid there before, not far. Her voice was fragile, yet her words carried urgency. Daniel studied her face, pale and tired but not lying, at least not in a way he could sense. He had a choice, abandon her and risk being alone with enemies closing in, or follow her to whatever hidden place she spoke of. He cursed under his breath. Show me, Saris pushed herself off the wall. Her steps unsteady, Daniel stayed close, rifle ready, guiding her through crumbled streets and shattered archways. The ruins looked like the skeleton of a once-living city. Broken towers reaching toward a dead sky. Every sound made his nerves sharpen. A loose rock tumbling. A whisper of wind. It all felt like claws ready to strike. Saris moved slowly, sometimes leaning on the walls, but she did not stop. Finally, she led him to a narrow passage hidden behind fallen stone. They squeezed through, Daniel checking every corner before stepping forward. At the end of the passage was a half-buried door, rusted but still intact. Saris knelt, pressing her hand against a glowing panel beside it. The door shuddered, then creaked open. A gust of stale air brushed their faces. Inside was darkness. Daniel switched on a small light attached to his rifle. The beam revealed metal walls, bent but solid. Dust covered the floor, but the space felt untouched for years. This was a supply bunker, Saris whispered. Stepping inside, before the colony fell, families hid here. Some never came out. Her words sent a chill crawling through Daniel's spine. He followed her in, pulling the door shut behind them. The air was heavy but safe, for now they sat near the center. Saris lowering herself onto a broken crate. Daniel kept pacing, rifle always aimed at the entrance. His mind spun with questions. Why were you here alone? He finally asked, if this bunker was safe, why not stay? Saris lowered her gaze, her hands curling in her lap. Because I thought someone might still be alive. I searched, I called, but only silence answered. Her voice cracked. Hope can be cruel, human. Daniel paused, his chest tightening at the sadness in her tone. He remembered her promise. I'll give you a family. At first it had felt like manipulation, but now he saw it differently. It was not a bargain. It was a cry for something she had lost long ago. The silence stretched, only broken by the hum of Daniel's light. After a while, Saris reached into her torn cloak. Her fingers pulled out something small wrapped in cloth. She held it close. As if protecting it, Daniel frowned. What is that? Her eyes flicked to him, cautious. A piece of memory, she said softly. The last piece of my family. She unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a tiny crystal shard, glowing faintly with blue light. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Daniel stared. What is it? A memory stone, Saris explained, her voice trembling with both pride and grief. Our kind uses them to store voices, images, laughter. They carry the echoes of those we lose. This one holds my parents, my brothers, my child. Daniel's eyes widened. Your child? Her voice cracked again. He was taken in the first attack. I never saw him again, but his voice... His laugh lives in here. She held the shard tightly, tears glistening in her glowing eyes. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He wanted to say something, but no words came. The silence between them was heavy with sorrow. Then Saris whispered almost to herself, That is why I begged you. That is why I said, family, I don't care if I die, but I don't want the memory to die with me. I want someone to keep it, someone who understands. Daniel froze. His mission, his orders, his rifle, none of it seemed to matter for a moment. The woman before him wasn't an enemy. She was a mother, a survivor, a soul clinging to the last piece of her world. The bunker groaned softly as the wind outside pressed against it. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low. If the hunters come, we fight together. If they don't, we move at dawn. Saris looked at him, and for the first time, her lips curved into the smallest smile. Then maybe I was right, she whispered. Maybe I found family after all. Daniel didn't reply, but his chest felt heavier than before. He sat near the door, rifle across his lap, his eyes fixed on the darkness. He would not admit it out loud, but something had changed. The silence of the bunker seemed almost peaceful. Yet far away, faint but certain, came another sound, echoing howls. Drawing closer, the shelter might be strange, might be hidden, but it would not stay secret for long. The bunker was silent except for the faint hum of Daniel's light and the ragged sound of Saris's breathing. Dust floated in the beam like tiny stars. Outside, the ruins groaned under the weight of the wind. But inside there was only stillness. Daniel sat near the door, rifle across his lap. His eyes never left the shadows. His body was tired, but his mind stayed sharp. He knew danger could strike at any moment. Saris sat opposite him on a broken crate, clutching the small crystal shard close to her chest. Its faint blue glow flickered in the dark like a heartbeat. For a long while neither spoke. The silence stretched heavy. Almost unbearable, finally, Daniel broke it. What else aren't you telling me? Saris's head lifted slowly, her glowing eyes met his. What do you mean? Daniel narrowed his gaze. Back there, you said the hunters want humans too. That's not something you just overhear. You know more, don't you? Saris flinched as if his words were blades. She lowered her gaze, hands tightening around the shard. For a moment, Daniel thought she wouldn't answer, but then she whispered, Yes, I know more. Daniel leaned forward slightly, voice steady. Then talk if I'm risking my life for you. I need the truth. Her lips trembled, her voice came soft. The hunters are not just killers for hire. They are part of something larger. They serve the Syndicate, a shadow council that thrives on destruction. They fund wars, burn colonies, and sell survivors like cattle, my people. We were nothing more than a market to them. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had heard rumors of the Syndicate, whispers in dark corners of outposts. But no one had ever spoken so openly. Saris continued, her voice growing harsher. I was not just a farmer's daughter, human. I was chosen as a caretaker for younglings. I kept records, voices, memory stones. I know their faces, their buyers, their plans. She held the shard tighter. That is why they hunt me, not because I escaped, but because I remember. Her words hung in the air, dangerous and heavy. Daniel felt the weight of them press against his chest. If she was telling the truth, she wasn't just a refugee. She was a key, a witness who carried secrets that could tear the Syndicate apart. And you tell me this now? Daniel asked, his tone low. Her eyes flashed with pain. Would you have believed me before? You pointed a gun at me, ready to kill me where I stood. Now at least you've seen I am more than an enemy. I am proof I am. The last voice of my people. Daniel looked away. Jaw tight, he hated how her words pierced through him. He had been trained to see aliens as obstacles, as threats. But Saris was not a threat. She was the living reminder of something bigger. The bunker felt smaller now, the air thicker. Daniel rubbed his forehead with one hand. If what you say is true, then keeping you alive is bigger than just mercy. Saris leaned forward, her voice urgent. It is survival, human. Not just for me, for you, for your people.
If the Syndicate truly sets its eyes on humanity, you will face what my people faced.
And you will not be ready. Her words struck like thunder. Daniel felt the chill of them settle into his bones. The silence stretched again, only broken by the faint hum of the crystal in her hands. After a while, Daniel asked quietly, Why me? Out of all the humans you could beg, why me? Saris gave a small, broken smile. Because you listened. Even with your weapon raised, you did not pull the trigger. Others would have ended me already. But you hesitated. That is the mark of someone who can carry family. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. He thought of long nights alone on Earth, empty apartments, cold meals, missions that ended with no one waiting for him. A family. It was a word he had avoided, but it lingered in the cracks of his heart. Before he could respond, a sound broke the silence, scraping, faint but sharp from beyond the bunker door. Daniel stiffened instantly, rifle rising. Saris clutched the shard close, her breath quickening. The scraping grew louder, followed by a low growl. They found us, she whispered, fear flashing across her face. Daniel moved closer to the door, pressing his ear against the cold metal. Shadows shifted in the narrow passage outside. Heavy footsteps, claws scratching stone. He turned to Saris, whispering, If they break through, stay behind me no matter what happens. You protect that shard, do you understand? Her glowing eyes locked onto his. She nodded slowly, whispering back, And if you fall, human, I will remember you too. The words struck him deeper than he expected. He gritted his teeth, aiming his rifle at the door. His breath slowed, his pulse steady. The dark was about to reveal its secrets. The bunker door trembled as something heavy slammed against it. Dust rained from the ceiling. Daniel pressed his rifle tight against his shoulder. Eyes locked on the steel frame. Saris clutched the glowing shard to her chest, her whole body shaking. The scratching outside grew sharper, claws dragging along the metal, followed by a guttural growl that made the air itself vibrate. They've tracked us, she whispered, her voice barely holding steady. The hunters never stop once they smell prey. They chase until it ends. Daniel's jaw tightened. His instincts screamed to move, to fight, to survive. Then we make it end here, he muttered. The door shook again, a dent forming where the claws struck. The hunters outside snarled. Speaking in a language of growls and hisses, Saris flinched at every word. understanding what Daniel could not. They say, "They will tear us slow," she whispered, her glowing eyes filling with terror. "They want me alive. They want what I know." Daniel steadied his breath. "Then they'll have to go through me first." The next slam bent the hinges. The metal groaned. Daniel pulled Cirrus back, pushing her behind a broken stack of crates. "Stay low. Don't move until I say." She clutched his arm for a second, her voice trembling. "Human, you don't have to do this." Daniel looked into her desperate eyes. "I already chose, remember? Family." The word hung in the air like a vow. The door ripped open with a deafening screech. Metal tore free, slamming onto the floor. Shadows spilled into the bunker. And with them came the hunters. They were tall, towering over Daniel, their bodies armored with thick scales, glowing red eyes cutting through the dark. Their jaws split wide with sharp teeth. Their claws glistened in the dim light. 3 of them entered first, their snarls echoing against the metal walls. Behind them, more waited in the passage. Daniel fired first. The crack of his rifle thundered in the bunker. The first hunter's head snapped back, blood spraying the wall. It fell, but the others roared and charged. Cirrus cried out, ducking lower as claws slashed the air. Daniel rolled to the side, firing again, bullets striking scales. The second hunter staggered but didn't fall. It swung a massive claw, smashing the crates where Cirrus had been hiding moments ago. Splinters flew everywhere. Daniel gritted his teeth, firing in bursts, aiming for weak spots, eyes, mouth, joints. The confined space worked both ways. They had little room to dodge, but so did the hunters. Every second felt like a knife edge. One of the beasts lunged at him, knocking the rifle aside. Daniel slammed his boot into its leg, grabbed a broken pipe from the ground, and jammed it into the creature's throat. The beast gurgled, thrashing violently before collapsing. The other 2 roared. One advanced on Cirrus. "Its claws raised high, Cirrus!" Daniel shouted, diving across the bunker. He slammed into the creature's side. Dragging it away from her, they both crashed against the wall, claws ripping at Daniel's armor. Sparks flew as metal tore. Daniel pressed his pistol under its jaw and fired twice. The beast went limp, its body slumping to the floor. The last hunter snarled. Its red eyes locked on Cirrus. She stumbled back, clutching the shard tighter, her voice broke in terror. "Stay away." But the beast ignored her plea. Stepping forward with slow, deliberate menace, Daniel, bleeding and gasping, forced himself up. He lifted his rifle once more. His voice came like steel. "You're not touching her," he fired. The bullets tore through its chest. The roar shook the bunker. The beast staggered but didn't fall. It lunged again, only to be met by Cirrus herself. In a desperate move, she snatched a jagged shard of metal from the floor and drove it into the hunter's side. The creature howled, twisting in rage. Daniel fired the last shot into its head. Finally, it collapsed, shaking the ground as it fell. Silence followed, broken only by the ragged sound of breathing. Daniel slumped against the wall, his chest heaving, his armor torn. Blood seeping from his arm, Cirrus crawled to him, dropping the shard beside her. Her hands hovered over his wounds, trembling. You saved me," she whispered, voice breaking. Daniel gave a weak smirk. "I told you. Family." Her eyes glistened with tears. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder, whispering in her alien tongue words he didn't understand but felt in his bones. For a moment, in the dark of the bunker, there was no war, no hunters, just 2 souls breathing together. But outside, more growls echoed in the distance. The fight was not finished. The Syndicate's hounds would keep coming. And Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The bunker smelled of smoke and blood. Daniel's chest rose and fell heavily, sweat and dirt streaking his face. His rifle hung loosely in his hands, nearly empty. The bodies of the hunters lay across the floor. Their glowing eyes dimmed forever, but the silence did not last. From the passage outside came more echoes, growls. Clicks, claws scraping stone, the sound of reinforcements. Daniel forced himself to stand straight, though every muscle screamed in pain. Cirrus knelt beside him, her glowing shard pressed close to her chest. Her eyes shone with worry. "They won't stop," she whispered. "More will come." "They always come." Daniel wiped blood from his lip and gave her a grim smile. "Then we make sure they regret it." He moved quickly, scanning the bunker for anything useful. Broken crates, pipes, rusted tools, wires dangling from the ceiling, trash to some, but to a human soldier with earthborn instincts. "They were weapons. Help me," Daniel said firmly, tossing her a length of wire. "We're not going to wait to die." "We set traps," Saris hesitated, then nodded, following his orders. She tied wire across the narrow passage, her trembling hands moving faster as Daniel showed her how to anchor it. Together they set up crude snares, sharpened metal shards hidden under debris, and a pile of unstable crates near the entrance ready to collapse. Every moment was filled with urgency. The hunter's growls grew louder. Closer, finally, Daniel took position by the door. Rifle reloaded with his last magazine, Saris crouched behind him, clutching both the memory shard and a jagged pipe she refused to drop. The first shadow appeared in the doorway. A massive hunter ducked low, its glowing eyes cutting through the dark. Behind it came two more snarling, hungry for blood now. Daniel shouted. Saris pulled the rope tied to the crates. The stack tumbled down, crashing onto the first hunter. It roared in pain as the heavy wood pinned its legs. Daniel fired at its exposed throat, the beast choking before collapsing. The second lunged forward, claws raised high, but its foot caught the hidden wire. The snare tightened instantly. Pulling it off balance, Daniel rushed forward, slamming his boot into its chest and firing into its head. The third charged, breaking through the trap. Daniel's rifle clicked empty. Out, he cursed, throwing the weapon aside. The beast swung, claws tearing across his shoulder. Pain exploded through him. He staggered back. "Daniel!" Saris screamed, rushing forward. She swung her jagged pipe with all her strength, slamming it into the hunter's arm. The beast roared, turning on her, claws swiping dangerously close. Daniel gritted his teeth, ignoring the burning pain. He grabbed the broken pipe he'd used earlier and rammed it into the creature's back. It howled, twisting violently, but Daniel held on, pushing with every ounce of strength left in him. Finally, Saris drove her shard of metal straight into its glowing eye. The beast shrieked, collapsing to the ground, dead at last. The bunker shook with silence again. Only their ragged breathing filled the air. Daniel collapsed against the wall, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Saris fell beside him, her chest rising and falling quickly. Her hands trembled as she reached for his wound. "Don't touch it," Daniel muttered through gritted teeth. "It'll be fine." But she ignored him, tearing part of her cloak and pressing it against the wound. "You bleed for me. Human," she whispered, her voice shaking. "No one has ever done that. Not even my own kind." Daniel looked at her, her silver hair messy, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and fire. For the first time, he saw her not just as an alien. She was a survivor, a fighter, someone who stood beside him when others would have run. "You fought too," he said softly. "You didn't hide. You didn't give up." Her lips trembled into a small, fragile smile. "Because you didn't. Because you said family," the word lingered between them. Heavy, real. Daniel felt something stir in his chest, something warmer than fear, stronger than pain. He placed his hand gently over hers, pressing the cloth against his wound together. For a moment, the bunker felt less like a tomb and more like shelter, not because of its walls, but because of who shared it. Saris whispered, "When this is over, if we survive, I will not leave your side." Daniel met her eyes, his voice rough but steady. "Then we survive. Together." The silence returned, but it was no longer empty. It was filled with something unspoken, a bond forged in blood and fire. But outside, the hunters were not done. The echoes grew louder again, more claws, more growls, more shadows moving through the ruins. The battle was not finished. But Daniel and Saris were no longer just strangers. They were bound by promise, by fight, by something deeper neither had dared to hope for. And as Daniel reloaded the last rounds he had left, he knew one thing clearly. Whatever came through that door next, they would face it as one. The ruins outside were quiet at last. Dawn light slipped through the cracks of stone, painting the broken city in pale gold. Smoke drifted lazily from the corpses of the hunters scattered around the bunker's entrance. Their glowing red eyes had gone dark forever. Inside, Daniel leaned against the wall, his armor torn, his shoulder wrapped in bloodied cloth. His breath was heavy, but his eyes were still sharp. He had survived another night, barely. Saris sat beside him, clutching the memory shard close. Its faint blue glow pulsed softly, no longer with sorrow, but with something new, hope. Her silver hair fell around her tired face, her glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. "You should rest," she whispered gently. "Your wounds, they are deep." Daniel smirked faintly, though the pain tugged at every word. "Rest later. Move now." He struggled to stand. Pushing himself upright, Saris rose quickly, steadying him with surprising strength. For a moment, their hands touched. Warm and real, her voice came softer. "You are stubborn, human, Daniel gave a tired laugh. And you're alive because of it. They stepped out of the bunker together, the morning wind brushing their faces. The ruined city stretched before them, broken but strangely peaceful under the sunrise. For the first time since their meeting, there was no sound of claws, no growls in the distance. The hunters had been driven back for now, but both of them knew more would come. As they walked carefully through the rubble, Daniel finally asked, "So, what now?" Cirrus looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "Now, we run but not away." She lifted the shard, its glow catching the morning light. "We run toward others, toward your people, toward those who must know the truth. If the Syndicate moves against humans, you must be warned." Daniel nodded slowly, his jaw set. "Then we don't waste time. We find a ship, send word back, whatever it takes." They paused at the top of a broken stairway. The city spread out below them, once full of life, now only ash and silence. Cirrus's eyes filled with sorrow. "This was my home," she whispered. "Every stone has a voice, every street a memory now. Only shadows remain." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, firm but steady. "Shadows don't last forever. Not if someone's willing to light a fire." She turned to him, her glowing eyes wide. "You sound like a leader." Daniel shook his head. "No, just a man who's tired of being alone." For a long moment, they stood together, the silence no longer heavy but comforting, two survivors bound by something more than chance. As they moved down the ruins, Cirrus spoke again, her voice quiet but certain. "You said family, Daniel. Do you still mean it?" He stopped, turning to face her. His face was rough, scarred by battle, but his eyes were steady. "Yes," he said firmly. "More than ever." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Fragile but real, she held the shard close. "Then maybe I'm not the last of my people, maybe. I am the first of something new." Daniel didn't answer, but his silence was agreement enough. They walked on, step by step, the city's ruins fading behind them. Ahead lay danger, Syndicate hunters, mercenaries, a galaxy full of enemies who would rather see them dead. But they also carried something stronger than fear: trust, bond, the seed of family. As the sun climbed higher, Daniel glanced at Cirrus, her face lit by light. Not just alien anymore, but something more familiar, something closer, and in his chest, where once there had only been emptiness, something new stirred. Hope. The Syndicate would come, the hunters would return. But Daniel was no longer alone, and neither was Cirrus. Together they would fight together. They would carry memory and truth together. They would begin something no one, human or alien, could break. The ruins behind them were an ending. But the path ahead was a beginning, a new beginning.